In this video, I want to break up the absolute value of x squared minus 4x plus 3 into a piecewise function. So in order to do this, I first need to understand what the absolute value of x is. Okay. So absolute value of x represents a distance between a point and 0. So if my number is negative 5, the distance between negative 5 and 0 is 5. So in order to make that calculation, you have to turn the negative into a positive. So the way you make a negative into a positive is to multiply by a negative number. So in our case, we're going to have negative x if x is negative. Okay, so think about plugging any negative number here. When you have a negative outside, the two negatives are going to cancel. You're going to be left with a positive number. And if you have a positive number, you leave it alone. Also, if it's 0. Okay, so if I take the absolute value of positive 5, that's the same thing as 5, what you started with. The absolute value of 0 is 0. So that's why we just leave it as it is. So what this comes down to is finding out when is the inside positive and when is it negative. So in order to do that, we want to factor out the x squared minus 4x plus 3 into x minus 3, x minus 1. And we're going to make a number line and see when are these 0. So x minus 1 is 0 at 1. X minus 3 is 0 at 3. So now we need to test the region. So pick a point left of 1. Let's say 0. I plug it in. It would be easier to plug it in this one. So 0, 0, and then positive 3. Pick a number between 1 and 3. Say 2. 2 minus 3 is negative. 2 minus 1 is positive. Negative times a positive is negative. And then we have to pick a number that's bigger than 3. Let's say 4. 4 minus 3 is positive. 4 minus 1 is positive. Positive times a positive is a positive. So now I'm going to break up my absolute value into 3 pieces. One interval is where x is less than or equal to 1. The other one is when x is between 1 and 3. And the last one when x is greater than or equal to 3. So because the absolute value is positive when x is less than or equal to 1, I'm going to leave it alone. There's no issues there. I could just remove the absolute value. But now when I get between 1 and 3, it's negative. But I know that the absolute value always is positive, so I'm going to multiply this negative by another negative. So it'll be negative x squared minus 4x plus 3. And that's between 1 and 3. So whenever something is negative, do not include the endpoints. That's typically the form in which they do it. Technically, it's not wrong to include them because the endpoints are 0. And if you multiply a negative by 0, it's still 0. So technically, you're not wrong, but it's typical to include the endpoints whenever it's positive. And lastly, we're in the third scenario here. It's positive, so we're just going to drop the absolute value. And that's when x is greater than or equal to 3. So this is our answer.